everyone, my name is Ellis and I am an intern at OC Habitats, and today I'm going to be talking about the fast fashion industry and kind of the different environmental effects it has. So first I'm going to be talking about the history of the overall fashion industry, and then I'm going to go into what the modern fast fashion industry is and kind of what it looks like today. And then after that, I'm going to be talking about how the COVID-19 pandemic affected the industry. And then just to kind of give a more well-rounded perspective on the industry as a whole, I wanted to give some advantages to different retailers and consumers of the industry. And then I'm also obviously going to be talking about how the fast fashion manufacturing products are affecting the environment. And I'm also going to offer some alternatives to shopping in fast fashion companies. I'm also going to be mentioning what greenwashing is, as well as how to identify it, and then also some ways that you can responsibly dispose of clothing you no longer want anymore. So starting with the history of fast fashion, there was a major shift that occurred within the late 1990s. Before the 1990s, shopping for clothes was considered a special event, and customers would save up money before they bought something new. And all of the trends that were later seen in retailer stores were shown on fashion shows several months beforehand. So customers would see a fashion trend, but have to wait several months before they could go ahead and buy it. And they also had to save up money for it. So it kind of just was a little bit more mindful and intentional in the way that people bought clothing items. But in the late 1990s is when shopping became more of a form of entertainment, and more discretionary money was spent on clothing pieces. And so this is when we saw the emergence of fast fashion companies that were offering cheaper knockoff versions of the trends that were being seen on the runway. And so trying to identify specifically the first type of companies that were doing this is a little bit difficult because we had American companies doing this, but at the same time, we had a lot of companies like H&M and Zara that were coming from Europe during this time, also doing the same thing. And obviously companies today aren't trying to be super vocal about the fact that they were the first fast fashion companies. So it's definitely a little bit hard to pinpoint, but we definitely did see this trend emerging within the late 1990s era. And then after this, we have the development of supply chain management, which is basically just meaning that the manufacturing is becoming a lot more efficient. And at the same time, we're having the fast fashion industry assume that customers are wanting high fashion at a lower cost. So it's going to also just kind of exacerbate and grow this industry. So if you were to apply an official definition for the fast fashion industry, it would be an approach to the design, creation, and marketing of clothing fashions that emphasizes making fashion trends quickly and cheaply available to customers. And what I liked about this definition is that it includes the word design and marketing, which weren't originally part of the fashion process even like 30 years ago. So these fast fashion companies really have been able to develop with the times and different technological innovations and marketing communications that have been created over time. And it also just shows that they have really been able to take control of almost every single part of the production process. So they're not just involved in manufacturing and distributing, they are a part of designing the clothes, making the clothes, putting them in stores, as well as marketing them to consumers as well, which I find really interesting. And I also just wanted to give some examples of fast fashion companies that you might be aware of. So I have Forever 21, Zara, H&M, Shein, Temu, and Gap. And Shein and Temu specifically are actually a part of a specific group of fast fashion companies that I'll get into in just a second. And then I also wanted to kind of talk about the mindset behind this type of industry. I feel like there has been a real emphasis on overconsumption as this industry has become a little bit more prevalent. It's basically just kind of signified by consumers always needing to feel like they need to buy a brand new item all the time, and then wearing it a couple times and then just getting rid of it when they don't feel like they want to wear it anymore. And so this has led to 85% of textiles ending up in landfills. And this is really dangerous for the environment because of the different materials that are used in these clothing items. Three of the most popular ones are polyester, polyurethane film, as well as viscose. And polyester is what most people are familiar with, but unfortunately it is non-biodegradable. So it's used a lot in different clothing pieces and clothing blends, but once it's in the environment, it's not really going to get out of the environment. It's not going to break down relatively soon at all. And then we also have polyurethane film, which is what faux leather is made out of. So a lot of the times it's marketed as a vegan alternative to real leather, which it is, but it's also marketed sometimes as like a more sustainable option. But polyurethane film is literally just plastic wrapped polyester. So again, it's not biodegradable. It's also wrapped in plastic, so it is obviously not good for the environment either. And then viscose was promoted as a vegan alternative to silk, but it actually involves a really intense chemical process. So again, not good for the environment either. And so another part of this kind of overconsumptive mindset has to do with an interesting cycle that I found in my research having to do with the fast fashion companies and consumers. So since these fast fashion companies are able to offer consumers really affordable clothing pieces with trends that are constantly cycling in and out of retailers, the consumers are really encouraged to buy more and to buy more frequently. And so that's contributing obviously to the need to always have the newest and best thing. But at the same time, that mindset is giving a need for these fast fashion companies to provide for. And so it kind of just creates this endless cycle. And then obviously as more money is poured into this industry and it's really growing, kind of just exacerbates the cycle at the same time as well. And I think another reason why this overconsumptive mindset has become so popular, at least in the United States, is because of social media influencers, mostly ones that make like lifestyle or fashion content on platforms such as YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. The first type of content that came to mind when thinking about social media was haul content, which is basically where an influencer will go to a store or they're going to order clothes online and ship it to their house. They'll try on all of the clothes, they'll style them, talk about prices, what they like about the products, what they don't like about the products. And it's basically, if you take out all of the context, it seems a lot like a paid advertisement. And it really is, because all of these influencers are typically getting the clothes for free from the companies that they're buying from. And then they're also usually paid on top of it as well. So it is very similar to a paid advertisement. That kind of leads into my next point about the blurred line between ads and social content. This type of content is really saturated on these platforms. So users are using it or are seeing it a lot more frequently than other types of content. And so it's really hard for users to tell what is an advertisement and what is just innocent social content that they're just seeing online. And so it kind of just leaves them really vulnerable to different marketing tactics that are used by these fast fashion companies. And then my last point has to do with Instagram Shop and TikTok Shop, which are relatively new features to these platforms. They're usually just seen as a shop tab. So users can just go in and scroll through the shop tab if they're looking for something to buy. But a lot of the times that they make their profit is through just adding links in the bottom of videos. So for instance, a fast fashion company will go ahead and pay an influencer to make a video showcasing a certain product, and then they'll go ahead and link that product at the bottom of the video. And so that really just makes it really easy for a consumer to go ahead and buy the product instantly. And what's interesting about these links is that they're typically linked to discounts as well. So if a consumer will go ahead and buy the product right then when they see the video, they'll get a slight discount on it, which also encourages to buy the product as well. So now I'm going to be talking about how the COVID-19 pandemic affected the fast fashion industry. So obviously with all the different restrictions going into effect, all of that, we had a lot of brick and mortar stores shutting down. And so companies or specifically fast fashion companies that were prioritizing the majority of the resources into their brick and mortar locations were becoming a little bit less popular. So brands like Zara and Forever 21 that prioritized their in-person locations rather than their online stores and online marketing kind of became a little bit less popular. And at the same time, we had the rise of strictly online clothing brands such as Shein, ASOS, and Temu. They became really popular, especially when they became popular on social media as well. These brands are especially efficient in the way that they make their clothes, and they're actually able to offer a majority of their products under $10. So pants for $5, shirts for $3. And so obviously when this hit social media, their success really grew. The people were filming Shein hauls and Temu hauls, all of this stuff, because they could buy so much more. And they also are able to offer a wide variety of trends. A lot of these are what we call micro trends. And so basically micro trends are clothing trends that last less than one season. And so because of how quickly they come in and out of fashion, typical fast fashion brands aren't able to support how quickly they do move in and out of fashion. So these brands are actually what we call ultra fast fashion brands, because they're able to support these micro trends and also are just extremely efficient and can offer their clothing prices at such a low cost for consumers. And then now I wanted to talk about some of the advantages of the fast fashion industry. So through my research, I was able to kind of group them into three different categories. So I have profit, pace, and price. So obviously this type of business model is going to be really profitable for retailers and manufacturers because they're able to make these clothes at such a low cost by outsourcing their labor into other countries. And they're able to mark them up and sell them for a lot more money when they sell them to consumers. So there's high profit margins in this for retailers and manufacturers. And then also, since there's always new trends coming in and out of fashion, they're able to cycle clothes in and out of retailers really quickly. So again, consumers are going to be more inclined to visit stores more often, visit sites more often. So they're going to be buying more because there's more trends in the store. And also has to do with pace. So with this type of business model, the different clothes and the different fashions that consumers are wanting to wear are going to be able to get to them really quickly. Usually by the time that a consumer wants to check out, if a store has a certain fashion trend that they're liking, something like that, it's usually already going to be in store or on a website somewhere. And so consumers are able to get what they want when they want it, which obviously is really nice for the consumers. And then lastly has to do with price. Again, as I mentioned, since these companies are usually outsourcing their labor in other countries and are able to make them at a very low cost, they're able to offer them at a lower cost for consumers compared to like designer brands or other brands in the marketplace. And so this was really beneficial during the times of economic downturn, especially during the COVID pandemic and the recession and all of that. People who were needing new clothes were able to get some for a really affordable price, especially on sites like Shein and Temu and all of that. And then also this is really great for creative expression. So it's really easy for people to try out new looks and try out new trends if these clothing pieces are only a couple of dollars versus like $50 for a new pair of jeans, something like that. And so it really just encourages people to try out new look and try out new fashion trends, which I think is really fun. And then also, again, with these ultra fast fashion brands, they're able to account for a wide variety of trends and styles. So no matter what your personal style is, you're definitely going to be able to find something on one of these sites. And then now to go into the different environmental impacts. Again, I grouped them up into water, microplastics, and greenhouse gases. So the fast fashion industry uses up a lot of water. They are actually using right now 79 billion cubic meters of water every single year, which is going to put them at the second largest water consuming industry right behind agriculture. And one major reason for this is because they use a lot of cotton, obviously, in clothing products. And it actually takes 2,700 liters of water to make just one cotton t-shirt, which is the average consumption of water for one person throughout, I believe it's 2 years. And so it's just kind of a crazy figure to think about. And this also brings up a lot of issues in terms of water scarcity because the countries that are developing the majority of cotton products are actually facing a lot of water scarcity issues right now. And consumption is actually set to increase by 40% by the year 2030. So again, that's kind of causing a lot more concern that they're not going to have adequate water sources available for the people who live in those countries. And then tied to this also has to do with the contamination of water. There's a term called wastewater, which refers to any type of water that's like polluted in one way or another. And the fast fashion industry actually contributes to the world, or 20% of the world's wastewater. And so again, this is going to cause some issues for people who live in countries that are manufacturing a lot of clothing products because these countries usually have looser or sometimes no restrictions on how wastewater needs to be disposed of. And so the people living here usually have a higher likelihood of being exposed to those dangerous pollutants and chemicals as well. And then now I'm going to be talking a little bit about microplastics and microfibers. So microfibers are a type of microplastic. They make up around 35% of all microplastics, and they are more thread-like. They're less than 5 millimeters in length, and they're usually made from synthetic or semi-synthetic materials. And they are actually releasing, or there's 6.5 million metric tons of microfibers that are being released into the environment every year from the fast fashion industry. So that's the equivalent of 32.7 billion t-shirts being released into the environment every single year. And the reason that this happens is because there's just a lot of different ways that microfibers can be released into the environment. So the first and most common way is just through the textile industry. Every stage of fiber production releases microfibers. So that's going to include spinning, weaving, cutting, sewing, as well as like wet processing and dyeing as well. And then just a side note, those last two stages, the wet processing and the dyeing processes, are also the major contributors of wastewater, because obviously you're going to need a lot of water for wet processing, and then also dyeing is going to have a lot of chemicals and pollutants in those dyes as well. So kind of just mix those two phases together, and then that's going to be what contributes to all of that wastewater. But going back to microfibers, another way that they are released is through washing machines. So doing just one load of laundry can release 18 million microfibers And most washing machines are hooked up to the municipal sewer system, which is meant to treat the water before it's released back into the ocean. But unfortunately, these microfibers are so small that they're not really able to be treated out fully. And so most of them do end up back into the ocean anyways. And the last major way that that microfibers are released back into the environment is through shedding, which can just happen through normal wear and tear of your clothes. But by tumble drying your clothes, you're increasing shedding by 3.5 times. And so just kind of something to be aware of in terms of that. And then I also believe that microfibers can also be released through the air vents in the dryers as well. And you might be wondering, well, these microfibers are so tiny, why do we care if they're in the environment or not? And there's actually a couple of major reasons why we don't want these microfibers in the environment. The first has to do with like animal ingestion. So some studies have shown that over 90% of all microplastics are ingested by some sort of human or animal at some point and in some way. And so there's a couple of different ways that it harms these animals. Some of it has to do with like blocking their digestive tract, altering their genes. It's also been linked to reduced food consumption, reduced energy from growth, and just a lot of different like health issues related to that. And also since the microfibers are made from synthetic or semi-synthetic materials, there's also some issues that are caused in terms of pollutants because they're not made from organic materials. And so these animals all animals are affected, but some more than others. Usually the marine animals are affected a little bit more just because there's so many microplastics and microfibers in the ocean. So different types of fish, because obviously they have gills, so they intake it that way. Or like mussels and crabs, what we call filter feeders, because the way they eat is by taking in a lot of water and then filtering out their food and then releasing the water. But again, since these microfibers are so tiny, they usually just end up ingesting the microfibers with their food as well. And then in terms of land animals, it's going to be animals that live in close proximity with humans. So animals like raccoons, squirrels, possums, animals like that, just because they're so close to things like washing machines, dryers, and things like that, and just being around clothes all of the time. And then not only does this affect animals, this also affects humans as well. Some research has shown that humans ingest around 320 microplastics every single year. And the major way that this happens is through inhalation. And some research has also shown that the average person will inhale around 170 microplastics every single day. And so it's actually so common that they've actually found some microfibers in lung tissue, which can cause inflammation, cell and tissue damage, as well as respiratory lesions as well. And so it's definitely something to be aware of. And then lastly, for greenhouse gases, the fast fashion industry actually releases 10% of the global greenhouse gases. So they're releasing 1.2 billion tons of carbon dioxide every single year, which is more than the shipping and aviation industry combined, which is pretty crazy. And then also 57% of clothes made within the fast fashion industry do eventually end up in landfills. And the reason that this connects to greenhouse gases is because when these landfills are burned, they release a bunch of different dangerous gases and chemicals into the air. One of these is called methane, which is 28 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And then also the different herbicides and pesticides that are used in fiber production, they eventually leak into the soil under the landfill and can disrupt its fertility and biodiversity as well. And so now I just wanted to offer a couple of different alternatives to shopping in the fast fashion industry. The most common one is thrifting, obviously. It's a great option. You can go and buy some more affordable clothes. If you're donating, you're able to give a bunch of other people access to affordable clothes as well. And since it's become so popular, there's been a lot of different ways that have been developed that you can thrift. So obviously there's the typical Goodwill, Salvation Army, where if you're donating, you just drop off all of your clothes, they'll take it for you. If you're if you are shopping, you just search through the racks, try to find something that you like. And it's probably like the most affordable option, most affordable way to thrift as well. But we also have the arrival of more curated thrift stores. So places like Buffalo Exchange and Plato's Closet, where if you are giving them clothes, they don't just take everything you have. They actually go ahead and look through your clothes and they pick out pieces that they think will sell, that are good quality, and they will pay you for your clothes as well. So it's really nice if you're trying to make some cash on the side. And then if you are shopping for clothes, it's a lot easier to find something that you like because it is more curated, but it does come at a slightly higher price with that as well. And then we also have the arrival of purely online thrift stores. Some examples are Depop, Poshmark, ThredUp. If you are trying to like donate your clothes, you basically just list them on there, and it's very similar to just selling them online. Um, and then it's really easy if you are looking to buy clothes because you can just search up whatever you're looking for and then scroll through a bunch of different sellers who are offering what you're looking for. But again, this probably does come at a pretty significant price increase because of that. And then you can also look into different eco-conscious clothing brands. The only downfall with these types of companies is that they are pretty expensive typically because the technology in terms of manufacturing the clothes with sustainable materials is usually pretty expensive, or sometimes the technology just doesn't exist yet, and so they have to work around how to be able to make these clothes in the right way. But they're a really great option. Through my research, I found a organization called Ten Tree, which basically I like them because they offer a bunch of different clothing basics. So they're not trying to trend hop or anything like that. They want to produce clothes that people are going to wear a lot and wear for a long time. All of their clothes are made from sustainable, or they're made from sustainably sourced or recycled materials. They're made with fair and safe working conditions, and they also plant trees for every single purchase they make as well, which I thought was pretty cool. So if you're interested, I definitely recommend checking them out. Another option is to learn how to make your clothes or upcycle them. I think this is a really fun option. There's definitely a huge online space for this and a lot of different ways that people are helping each other learn how to do this. It's really great to upcycling because if you're like getting rid of, or if you're looking to just like spice up your clothes in some way, this is a great way to make it more personal, more unique to you, and just kind of like help you enjoy your clothes a lot more. And then another alternative is simply to just reduce your consumption. I feel like with learning a little bit more about this industry, you're able to recognize what is kind of like a fast fashion tactic or something like that. And maybe you're able to recognize some of your own consumptive habits. And so I think that just by valuing quality over quantity is a lot more beneficial. It'll probably save you money in the long run if you buy one thing that's really good quality versus buying 5 of the same thing over and over again because they keep breaking, or things like that. And so I think that's just really beneficial for consumers and for the environment as well. And then next we'll be talking about greenwashing. And so if you're unfamiliar with the term, it's basically when a company will convey a false impression or misleading information about how a company's products are environmentally sound. And the reason that companies do this is because corporate social responsibility has become a lot more important in today's marketplace, and especially in terms of being sustainable and environmentally conscious and all of that. And so by greenwashing, a company is able to make their company sound and look a lot more sustainable than they actually are, and so they don't actually change any of their business practices. And so it's really important for customers who are looking for more sustainable products to be aware of greenwashing, how to identify it. So the Federal Trade Commission, or the FTC, has imposed some standards on companies, and or just to make sure that they're just to ensure that companies are being transparent about their business practices, and also allows consumers to identify greenwashing if any of it's happening. So one of the standards is that packaging and advertising should explain the product's green claims in plain language and readable type in close proximity to the claim. So it's basically just saying that companies need to be very exact about their claim. They can't make vague statements. So again, if you're a consumer, you want to avoid any products that are making vague environmental statements about their product or their company. Also, an environmental marketing claim should specify whether it refers to the product, the packaging, or just a portion of the product or package. So a company can't just wrap a plastic product in a paper packaging and then call it sustainable. They have to specify what part of the product is good for the environment, what part is not, and just, again, have that transparency in the way that they are creating their products. And then a product's marketing claim should not overstate directly or by implication an environmental attribute or benefit. So again, they have to be very exact with their claim. They're not able to make their company or product sound more sustainable than it actually is. They're just able to be very honest with the consumers about how environmentally conscious their product is for the environment. And then lastly, if a product claims a benefit compared with competition, then the claim should be substantiated. So again, they have to be very clear, very exact when they are talking about how their product relates to that of another product. It has to show that they've done some testing, some research on how their product stacks up against their competition. And so now I just wanted to offer some responsible ways that you can get rid of clothing that you no longer want and need anymore. Maybe you're doing some spring cleaning, just cleaning out your closet, anything like that. The first way is through donation, which is obviously the most common way to get rid of clothes, which is a great option. Again, you are going to be giving people access to affordable clothing, which is great. But there are some things to keep in mind when you are donating your clothes so you can help your thrift stores serve the community in the best way possible. You're first going to want to make sure that your donations are quality. So if it's stained or torn for some reason, that's why you're getting rid of it. It's going to be better suited for a third-party recycling program, just because if you're getting rid of it because you don't want to wear it because it's damaged, someone isn't going to want to pay for that product, right? So you just want to make sure that they're quality donations. You're also going to want to keep the season in mind as well. So if you are donating in summer and you're trying to get rid of some winter coats, you're probably going to want to wait a couple of months until it's winter to donate those winter coats, because the thrift stores aren't really going to be able to put those winter coats out on the racks when they get them. They're going to go in storage for a little bit, and so it kind of just makes it more difficult for thrift stores to manage donations when they're constantly getting clothes and items that they don't really need in that moment. And so it's really going to help them out if you just wait a couple of months until it's winter and then give it to them then, so then they can just immediately put them out on the rack and get them to someone who needs them right then. Another great option is to sell your clothes, and there's a lot of great options to do this. You can do them online through some of the online thrift stores that I mentioned, like ThredUp and Depop, or you can sell them in person at one of those curated thrift stores like Buffalo Exchange or Plato's Closet. If you feel like you have a bunch of clothes that you're trying to get rid of, or maybe some furniture and some random knickknacks at the same time too, you can also host a garage sale, which I think is a really fun option as well. Another option that I mentioned earlier, again, is to repair or upcycle your clothes. Again, I think this is a really fun way to personalize your clothes. And again, there's definitely a lot of creativity on the internet right now of different ways that people have upcycled and repaired their clothes. So you can add some patches, you can add some embroidery. There's just a lot of different options with that. And then you can also look into different retailer recycling programs. These are a little bit newer to the marketplace. This is basically where brands such as like Madewell, H&M, and Nike are trying to kind of counteract the effects that their manufacturing processes are having on the environment by offering different recycling programs. So basically how this works is typically they'll have customers either come into their stores or ship products to a certain location. Sometimes they accept only brand specific clothes, or sometimes they accept all the clothes, and then they'll likely give the consumers store rewards back or something like that. And so the only thing with this is I would really recommend doing a lot of research with this, only because each program is going to be different. They're going to be accepting different types of clothes. They're going to be offering different rewards. And also greenwashing can be a pretty big aspect of this as well, because some companies are going to care more about where the clothes go than other companies. So again, you're just going to want to look on their program website, see what's going to be happening to the clothes specifically after you donate them, look for any data about the impact that they're having on the community and things like that, just to show that they are doing the research and the work on trying to see how their programs are actually helping the community. And then lastly, we have third-party recycling programs, which are great if you go through all these different steps. You still have some clothes that you just can't get rid of. These are great. So the most common way is going to be through the textile recycling programs, which are going to be offered through your local sanitation department, or sometimes even at farmers markets as well. And then we also have some independent recycling companies at the same time. And through my research, I found some called 4 Days and TerraCycle. And basically how these ones work is you'll just go on their website, buy a mailer from them. They'll ship you the mailer, and then you go ahead and put your clothes in there, and then you ship it back to them. And then from there, they're going to either use the materials from your clothes in their own products if they do that, or they're just going to go ahead and downcycle your clothes and materials to be made for other purposes. All right, awesome. Thank you so much. If you guys have any questions, feel free to email us at OC Habitats. Thank you so much.